Chiefs Kingdom, welcome in to the latest episode of the Out of Structure podcast on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. I am Ron Kopp Jr., the lead analyst at the site. With me, as always, my guy, Matt Stagner at StagDSP on Twitter. Stags, we are here on a Victory Tuesday. Finally, took us a couple weeks to get back to one, but yeah, and so that's why I figured I'd bring in the show. We got the Victory Tuesday. I've been the pessimist of the show, so make me do the intro to the show. How about that? Is that what we're going with?
Sure, absolutely. It was just a little Christmas present for you, Ron. Just from me to you. No, it is nice to have a Victory Tuesday once again. The victory over the Patriots, I'd be curious to see how satisfied you feel with that victory. It's 27-17. They improved to 9-5 after two straight losses, but there were times in the game when it was like, and there were times in the game where it was pretty solid. So be curious to get your takes on this week's game and your first impressions.
Well, I mean, the first thing we can talk about real quick, Stags, and the listeners, anyone who follows me on Twitter may have seen it, but hey, I was feeling, like putting a little gambling, a little wager on something Chiefs wise on Sunday. Me and my guy Monic, shout out Monic, my best man at my wedding, my guy. He kind of suggested, hey, Chiefs defense anytime touchdown today. Sounds like a pretty good bet. It sounds like it could be a good one. And I agreed. I was like, oh, man, you're right. Bailey Zappe's going to give him one. Maybe like a linebacker will sink under a pass and intercept it and run down the sideline with a blocking a barricade, leading him into the end zone. And that exactly happened. Willie Gay Jr. gets the pick. I'm standing up in my living room. I'm like, go, go, go. And what does he do but just skate right out of bounds? And honestly, what's funny is he's been getting a lot of crap for it. If the Chiefs social media, I saw on Instagram, released a video, and his teammates, many of you came up to him like, what are you doing? Why didn't you score? Bolton was like, we had blocks. And Brandon Daly was even giving him a lot of crap on the sideline. And so I'm going to be the last one to give him crap because it could have gave me a nice little change for Christmas, nice little more cash to get the fam some gifts. So that was a funny moment on Sunday because he even said after the game too, Stags. He said, I got comfortable, I got complacent. So he knew and to be serious though, you should try to finish those every chance you got, honestly.
Yeah, how many chances do you get a year for those? One or two probably for a linebacker.
It was his first pick of the year. It was his first pick since last year. You guys remember that pick 6? So yeah, he doesn't get many of those.
It was a great play nonetheless, and the defense did step up when they needed to. Statistically, this was a really good game for the defense. Again, allowing really a New England team that likes to run the ball, allowed them 52 yards on a 3.3 yards per carry average. That's a pretty solid performance against this Patriots team. Obviously held the passing game down pretty well as well. I mean, this was a 206 total yards for the Patriots. Was not a banner day for them on offense. The fact that they got to 27-17 is really only a factor of the Chiefs' turnovers.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty comfortable lead at 27-10 in the fourth quarter. This game definitely felt like a nice, kind of what the Chiefs needed, right? The defense, had some soft spots early, locked down, settled in like they have the past few games. So it was definitely a win that looked, felt like it was going to be more comfortable till the end. And that's what, some of the frustration of some players, but we'll get into a little later. But I know we'll be answering questions, Stags. We got questions. No questions from the AP Out of Structure Gmail account this week, but please send them there if you do not have an X account or Twitter account, and that's where we send out the prompt every Monday morning. Get your guys' questions. But yeah, shoot, Stags, I think let's get into it and talk about your winners and losers. Why don't you tell us about some of the guys you highlighted as winners on Sunday?
Yeah, the winner and the stock up for just about every article I write nowadays is Rashee Rice. I mean, this is the Chiefs' number one wide receiver. Whether he's a number one in the league, if you want to make that argument, I really don't care. He's certainly established himself as the best guy on this roster and somebody they should focus the passing offense around. He's gotten better every week. He's been consistent now And I love this tweet from Matt Derrick, who pointed out 81% catch rate. That's the highest for a rookie receiver with at least 70 targets in a season. That goes back to 1992. So missed me with all the complaints about his drops and whatever else. Rashee Rice has been phenomenal this year. Was great again this week as just a hard running, reliable pass catcher.
Dude, yeah, that is a ridiculous stat. He also mentioned the fact that guys like Michael Thomas, Jamison Crowder, and Amon-Ra St. Brown are just below him on the list, but kind of 5% lower than him. I mean, that's a significant rate. And you mentioned it for a guy that's had some drop problems. I mean, there's no denying it. He's just so efficient throughout that it doesn't even matter. I've been super excited about Rashee's development. He's actually like one of the most productive receivers in the NFL over the last few games. And he's only going to get more and more, utilization. We're seeing it, right? I mean, at first it was kind of just very simple things, but they're slowly trickling in more and more. And Mahomes is just going to continue to play with them because, something that, I kind of skipped over in the intro. We should have went over Stags, but they're missing Sky Moore now completely out of this receiver rotation too. So, I mean, Rashee Rice is just going to continue to dominate those slot snaps. He had 92% of the snaps of the entire offense. So that's like the most a receiver in the Chiefs offense has had, like, since Tyreek probably. I mean, no one puts 90% snap rate up. So, yeah, definitely exciting for Rashee to see him kind of just continue to be like a huge part, like the primary part of this offense receiving wise.
Yeah, he's had touchdowns in 3 of the last 4 games. 91 yards this week, 72 last week, 64 the week before, 107 the week before that. He's averaging 9 to 10 yards or 9 to 10 catches per game. Sorry, 9 to 10 targets per game with 8 catches per game on those targets. So if he's catching 8 of 9 for 80 yards and a touchdown every single week, that's your number one receiver. That is fantastic production to complement what the rest of the Chiefs have going on this offense. So his stock just continues to climb.
Well, while we're talking about your winners, other guys on offense, I mean, someone that, made a play like a wide receiver for that touchdown was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We got to give him some love. This podcast has had a love-hate relationship with the team's first-round pick from 2020. And this Sunday, it's all love because, it was good to see, him, make a significant impact after, obviously showing some flashes in that first start he had last week. And then this week, still, nothing significant on the ground necessarily, right? He did have the 20-yard run, which was nice. It was really well blocked up. It kind of popped on a drive. But yeah, I mean, that play, Stags, I don't know. What did you think when Clyde Edwards-Helaire went up like freaking, like Jody Fortson? I mean, he looked like a red zone threat there. That was crazy. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I know this is somebody who I've tried to defend as much as I could in his Chiefs tenure. I felt like a lot of the hate was undeserved. Maybe there's times he's not that productive, but there's also times where they ask him to do stuff that he's not that great at, right? So this is somebody who's not a stretch zone outside, runner. This is a straightforward runner that'll take what the blocking gives him. But he's also a phenomenal receiver for a running back and runs fantastic routes. And so to me, you hate to blame it on this, but like it really is about usage. Put him in a position to do what he does best. That screen pass that was blocked, with the wall of blockers. He took everything that they gave him, plus got a little bit extra. Now, if that was Jamal Charles, he probably takes it the distance. But for Clyde, given his stature and his speed, he got everything out of that was available and a little bit more. And then obviously that catch in the end zone was fantastic. So it really seems like people are starting to realize that, hey, this is a guy with a good attitude that is a valuable player for this team. And all the talk about cutting him in the offseason or dumping him for a 7th round pick swap in 2055 or something was a little bit premature. Running backs take a beating in this league, and you've got to have multiple good ones. So to me, I put both Clyde and Jerick McKinnon on the winners list this week because it was really about using them in the best way possible. Neither of them probably have that 80-yard touchdown run in them, but they did this week what they do best. McKinnon, doing a little bit of everything, passing the touchdown, receiving touchdown, Clyde with a receiving touchdown and a big screen pass. I mean, that's how you get production out of these two players.
Right. No, I 100% agree, because, when they are just traditionally running the ball, it hasn't been, super exciting these last two games, but we haven't really, necessarily, it hasn't really been like a glaring negative, right? Because it's not what they do well, and the other parts of the offense need to overcompensate when Pacheco's not in the game. Because I do want to point out that the last two games, McKinnon and Clyde combined have 106 rushing yards on 32 carries. That's 3.3 yards per carry. That does include that 20-yard run by Clyde this last Sunday. Pacheco should be back this next week. Andy even told us that the previous week, before this last game, that he'd be expected to be back against the Raiders. So good to know that Pacheco is going to be back. And then these guys are sprinkled in, right?
Yeah, I saw some people joking on Twitter, even when Pacheco's back, put Clyde at receiver. I mean, I wouldn't hate it.
Well, I mean, no, I know. And maybe this is, and I know you have some other defensive winners on your list, but we can talk about the defense in a second, because, the glaring negative from the offense in the game receiver wise, was a guy like Kadarius Toney. And, that's where we can maybe, bring in that Sky Moore point that I should have, sat on a little bit earlier. But, the Chiefs did send Sky Moore to IR. He did kind of come out of the game with an inflammatory knee, a swollen knee, I guess. And I guess it's bad enough to send him to injured reserve. So he is no longer a part of the receiver rotation. And so you're talking about a guy that was taking, at least a third of the snaps, if not more, every game. He didn't even take he took snaps against New England, but he's not showing up on my thing for some reason. Because he had the fumble, although that didn't count. So maybe that play was taken off the board. Was that his only snap or something? I don't know. I don't know why he's not showing up in my snap count thing. So anyway, Sky Moore, no longer part of this, so they're going to have to do something more at the receiver position, in terms of just like, because MVS shouldn't get more receiving, right? I don't think that's the solution. I think someone like Richie James would be a nice solution. He had a nice little catch this week. But no, I think there's something to be said that, maybe Clyde as can do some of those slot snaps. I mean, he can do some of that stuff. I don't think that's necessarily crazy if no one else in the receiver room is really, doing anything anyway. I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind to see him getting creative at this point, because,
right,
they will miss Sky Moore's snaps, but clearly they won't miss any production from him. You could probably get more out of, like you said, Richie James. Maybe, I don't know who else is going to benefit from those snaps. Kadarius Toney, you would think, would be the guy prior to, seeing him on the field this season. You would think that he would be the guy that would be heavily involved at this point. Andy Reid's comments on him after this week, when Toney had the ball go off his hands, off his head, off his hands again, and into the hands of a defender, it sure sounded like Andy Reid wasn't giving a resounding endorsement of Kadarius Toney going forward. It sure seemed like he might be phased out a little bit more too. So your receiver room is going to be, Rashee Rice at the top, Justin Watson, and then Richie James, like you said, picking up some of those snaps. That very easily would be the case. Andy Reid called out the fact that he only got Richie James a couple snaps and needs to do more of that. So it'll be interesting to see how it breaks down going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Moore did play 25% of the snaps against New England. I don't know. PFF for some reason just erased him from memory, which I guess because he's on IR. But that's the thing, his snaps were dwindling anyway. So this receiving room was kind of evolving to maybe not have Sky, eat up as many snaps anyway. But you're right. I mean, Toney is he's this playmaker that apparently somebody in the room, in the building, wants to see with the ball in his hands. Apparently, I don't know if it's Andy. I don't know if you're right. The Andy comments, make you think it's not him, but if it's Patrick, if it's the GM, because it is, there is something to the fact that he is causing more negative, at this point than he is positive. And the more snaps you give him, the more chance he gets to have negative plays. And that's how it's going right now. It seems like, it's kind of, he's had 40% of snaps the last 2 weeks. That's close to kind of the season high he's had in snaps. And we're coming out of these last 2 weeks just pulling our hair about what he is doing on offense. So that kind of
4 targets this week resulted in 2 catches, 5 yards, and an interception.
Receivers, the 4 targets. So it's like when your second receiver, which I guess he is, Justin Watson, I think just doesn't get the target share. It's like, where do you turn? And so I do think, Stags, you mentioned Richie James. Maybe it is a time we kind of throw it back to training camp and remember how hype some of us were, me included. I was very on the Richie James hype train at camp because he did play well. And, that slot position, Rice is going to continue to play more and more outside, more and more in different spots. And so Richie from the slot, I mean, he might become a player to watch for and see him continue to be involved more.
You bet. Well, in your Insta breakdown, you had some bright spots here from the game, not just focusing on the receivers, but what did you see in the Insta breakdown this week?
Yeah, so I focus on the defense, and so that's why we kind of skipped over your winners on defense, which, you did shout out our guys, linebacker Willie Gay, which we talked about at the front. It could have been a bigger winner for me. Charles Omenihu and L'Jarius Sneed also had good games. And yeah, maybe I'll start with Omenihu because, the defensive front played very well, limiting Zeke to 2.3 yards per carry. Ezekiel Elliott, the Patriots starting running back. And his longest rush was only 5 yards. So that was kind of the game plan. You've seen it with this team a lot of times is, hey, when that team is obviously wanting to establish the run game, they don't have a lot of weapons in the pass game. They're going to emphasize on stopping it, and they can, right? They tend to do that when they really lock it down. And so you saw that, and it started up front. And Omenihu, he played well as a run defender, but, I definitely thought we saw some of his best reps as an edge rusher on Sunday. And that's something that I didn't necessarily think we may see much of from Charles Omenihu this season. I thought a lot of his impact when he'd have games like this where he got a sack and another quarterback hit that caused an incompletion. I thought we would see more of him coming from the interior, getting those kind of games, but it was nice to see him doing it from the edge. And so he was stout. Derek Nottie had a good game. He ended up with a sack, but he also had, a few other big time tackles up front. But the linebackers in general, you mentioned Willie Gay, but Leo Chenal had a batted down pass. He blitzed off the edge. That was a great play by him.
Which, by the way, this was funny because I've not seen a lot of linebackers run as far as he did with both hands up. I feel like he had both hands in the air and he was running like he was a little kid trying to scare their friend in the dark, for about 10 yards before he got to that, make yourself look big, like it was, to me, it looked comical. I mean, I love the result. I love the fact that they get their hands up, but he just got them up real early and kept them up.
It is fundamentally a good play, though, to do that, right? Because, a lot of times you'll see guys, they get too happy about, hey, I'm getting after the quarterback, and they're just pumping their arms, and the quarterback throws right over him. Yeah, the quarterback can get hit, but he'd rather get hit and get the ball released than, you tip it. And so, Leo, you're right. It looks awkward, but you're right. He's just running hard and just has his hands up like that. I pointed that out in my tweet this morning because it is a good fundamental, smart play by him and a good, maybe a well-coached play there for him to just keep his hands up there. And even Drew Tranquill had a 1st and 10 sack where he got blitzed. I think it was one of his first reps subbing in for Nick Bolton. They were kind of rotating the linebackers around. Tranquill fired in there. So, the defensive front really established the tone for this game, and that's kind of why you saw them settle in. Once the they let a few downfield passes go at first, but once that kind of stopped, the run defense showed, and the Patriots got nothing going.
Yeah, but Zappe had a few of those just close your eyes and chunk it passes that seemed to work. I remember the one against L'Jarius Sneed where
that was lucky.
Under all kinds of pressure, just chucks it. Sneed was all over the receiver. Receiver just turns around and catches the ball behind me, and that was you hate to just call it a lucky play, but there was some of those completions where he looked really good early on. I was like, how in the world did that pass get out and get to where it was supposed to go? You expect it from Mahomes. You don't expect it from Bailey Zappi.
Well, I will say though, he did have a few completions to the tight end, right? Hunter Henry, the one touchdown too, and yeah, our safeties, definitely had a hard time, covering him at times. He's a good tight end. Spags actually called it out going into the game. He said Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki might be the best twosome at tight end we've played all year, which I was kind of like, really, but Hunter Henry is an underrated tight end, a guy that we've seen with the Chargers, back in the day. And so, yeah, I think Justin Reed had that holding call. He struggled. Mike Edwards, kind of was the one who gave up a little too much space on the touchdown.
Yeah.
But I will say the safety position, I called it out today. I should have mentioned it when we were talking about the run defense. They played hard coming up and filling run lanes. They were a big part of the run defense. I should have called them out because a guy like Chamari Connor really showed as an active player in the box. He's looking more Sneedish as the days are going on, Stacks. He really is.
I love it. I mean, when he was drafted, that was our hope, right? This is an athletic corner that can play some safety, that likes to hit, that play special teams, and maybe, just maybe, he could be a do-it-all L'Jarius Sneed type. I mean, so far so good for Connor.
Yeah, well, the other part of my kind of post-game breaking down, I do the AP Premier. It's a subscription service. Hopefully you guys are subscribed to it. And then I always do a little breakdown, a little more X's and O's, kind of, it's what you guys know I like to do after the game. And, honestly, what I came away with on offense, we've talked about the receivers. We've talked about kind of the supporting cast. I came away with the fact that Patrick Mahomes really did play well. And you saw on Twitter, a guy that's actually, a very well-respected quarterback analyst, Derek Klassen at QB Class on Twitter. He kind of said the same thing, right? He said, he charted Patrick Mahomes against New England, and he was unbelievable. The INTs were unlucky, which I agree with, but he was otherwise perfect. He said immaculate down the field and under pressure, peak performance from QB1. And so it is nice to see that someone else, kind of recognized that, because it did seem like he was kind of playing on expert mode, and he won, right? Like, you play on Madden sometimes. It doesn't matter how well you're playing. That computer, man, on expert mode, man, it is tough to overcome. And the Chiefs receivers, the Chiefs pass protection really made that tough on him at times. But you saw him convert third and longs like we've seen him do in the past, right, where he's just rifling downfield passes right where they need to be. You saw him, evade rushers at time to get the passes off. The Clyde pass that the Clyde touchdown catch we saw earlier, or talked about earlier. I mean, that was a great throw. I mean, I know it was but I guess he knew Clyde could go up and get it, and that was the only place that the ball could have gone. I think Mahomes managed this game very well. I think, obviously the Tony interception was unlucky, but Blake Bell, and he was one of your losers in the winners and losers too. He really, that's a play that you really should come back to the ball. That's a veteran needs to know to come back to the ball. Because Mahomes was late to that, but at the same time, if someone's late to that, the receiver has to work back, knowing that the ball is going to have to be that much quicker to him because the defense is that much quicker on him. So yeah, I think that's just as much on Blake Bell. So I think Mahomes really did overcome a lot of adversity not caused by him, and 27 points was probably like the baseline number of points they were going to score on Sunday with the way he was playing. I kind of wish we maybe would have seen those points and those yards get ticked up a bit more to kind of make him feel a little better, more confident going forward. Obviously,
absolutely, yeah. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was 8 for, or he was like I think he was 8 for 8 before that interception, the first interception. He was just had a phenomenal day overall. Yeah, I could see the frustration on the sidelines when that interception came off of Kadarius Toney.
Yeah,
and rightfully so. I mean, this is a quarterback who just put up a 300-yard game. Was remarkably accurate. 2 good touchdown passes, and really could have had a lot more. This was, you said 27 was the baseline. It truly was, because we actually saw, and I think finally our jinxes came true. We finally saw Harrison Butker miss a field goal. This was and this was from pretty close range. Looked like he lost his footing. Like there was something off about his approach and footing and kick on that one. We had been, dancing around the point, the fact that he was perfect this season, and man, should we just not talk about it like it's a baseball pitcher throwing a perfect game? You don't talk about it. You don't jinx it. Finally, he got jinxed enough, and I think the announcers have been doing this all season. hey, by the way, he hasn't missed one yet as he's lining up to kick a field goal. So he's turned around and kicked another long field goal, a 54-yarder, after that. So I'm not blaming Butker for the one miss on the season, but, it's notable that he finally had his first miss, and if not for that, they were at least at 30 to 34 points, depending on, how they finish that drive.
Well, I'll jinx Brandon Aubrey, the Cowboys kicker, then, because he's perfect too. So he is very perfect. He's looking so good this year. So hopefully he doesn't miss one either.
I mean, he literally can't miss.
Yeah, he cannot, right? So there's
Literally.
just, I don't know if we can even jinx him because he's so perfect. But if you didn't know, he played soccer at Notre Dame, not football. I've heard that every time the Cowboys have played football this year. But no, that's it does suck. We have a question about it later, so we can talk more about Butker and
let's just get to that now. Jake Wilson.
Yeah.
True or false? Butker's missed kick was beneficial because it eliminates the added pressure of a perfect season. Hey, I'll take it. Sure.
Ask the 98 Vikings. Was that the year that Gary Anderson, he was perfect all year and missed the NFC Championship field goal, and that's how they lost. And everyone, if he didn't have that pressure of being perfect, hey, I'll take it, Jake. I love the positivity.
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, it's going to be nice to be able to talk about the kicker without feeling like you're jinxing him. 95% on the year or whatever it's going to be is not bad.
All right. Well, let me get to my party pooper segment. It's time to bring it down a little bit. Yeah, no, we'll have it going here. Party pooper, and it extends from the conversation about Patrick Mahomes' great game and kind of the supporting cast around him. One of the guys that didn't help much was Travis Kelce. Tight end, All Pro Travis Kelce is someone that only had 5 catches for 28 yards on the game, 7 targets total, and the 2 incompletions he had were both end zone targets, and to me were both catchable passes, both plays that he probably should have made. And so the first one, if y'all remember, Mahomes kind of floats it up there, puts it perfectly, and Kelce times his jump well, but it is in traffic, it is crowded, and I think he just kind of over anticipates the traffic, or the contact, I should say, after the catch, and just drops it, and he's mad, right? And that's an easy drop, and that happens. 2 plays later, 3rd and goal, a little backed up. Kelce gets to the back line again, kind of in the end zone. Guys playing face coverage on him and kind of tugs him a little bit. And Kelce, instead of, kind of playing through it, kind of uses that as a way to try to sell contact, which I get, right? It's if you really get tugged, you want to sell it, but him selling it prevents him from actually making a play on the ball, which I think he absolutely could have made a play and scored there, because Mahomes ended up putting a laser on him, where the guy was turned around. So 2 plays where, Kelce a little off, and, it kind of just extends, on a kind of a stretch here where we just haven't seen Kelce, be as, dominant, or as, able to be, overcome coverage, right? Overcome, guys taking him away. He's only scored 1 touchdown in the last 7 games. He has had, decent yardage games. He had 90 against the Raiders, 80 against the Packers, 80 against the Bills. But, and a lot of that is the receivers not stepping up around him and forcing guys to take him away, to go away from him. But, I do think there's something too. We've talked about all year, this receiving core is so similar to last year, right? It's the same receiving core, except Rasheed's in for Juju, which, hey, Rasheed's looking like maybe, an even better version of Juju if he continues this pace. But if Travis ain't Travis, Stags, then it's not the same receiving core. And that does make it a lot harder going into the postseason than it was last year. So I don't know. I am starting to worry a little bit that we're not going to have the same kind of all-pro Travis we've had that we're used to into the postseason. You got any worries about that?
I'm not quite there yet. I can see it a little bit. We knew that this would be one of the years where he's going to have to be a little bit more savvy, a little bit less athletic. He's still made some big plays this year. I think he's still got plenty in him. I think defenses are certainly deciding they're going to specifically take him away. So we can't expect 15 catches for 120 yards every week. This wasn't his best game, but I'm willing to chalk it up as the Patriots literally trying to take him away above all else. And I believe that Kelce will be there for a big playoff run. Now, you want to talk about what happens in 2024 and beyond. I think it's 100% time to draft the tight end of the future. You can't say a Travis Kelce replacement because you can't replace Travis Kelce, but is it time to draft the next, top tight end of this team and do it early? Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I definitely think this tight end position this offseason is going to be very looked at hard. It's going to be a very focused position. The skill position group in general, I think we've talked about it. We've touched on it. But I do think you're going to see Veach really attack it like he has at other positions in the past.
All right, we'll see if you said you're going to stump me today with a player that played for the Chiefs and the Raiders. I don't think you did it last time. So what do you got this time?
No, I did not. Remember, I gave up the MVP little blurb from Rich Gannon, which was just ridiculous on my part. But
I think I should start guessing before you give me hints, and then go from there.
You might be smart because I throw you too many softballs. This one I'm gonna give you a little heater. Inside.
I'm gonna throw out my guess first, and then we'll listen to your clues, and then my final answer will come after the break. I'm guessing that you're going with Chester McLaughlin.
Oh wow! Okay, good name. Good name. It's a good name, but it's not Chester McLaughlin.
All right,
Chester McLaughlin.
Go ahead with your clues.
No, I am an offensive lineman, one that before earning some Pro Bowls with the Raiders, I actually won a Super Bowl before I got to the Raiders. And so I was kind of a guy that won on a winning franchise, went to the Raiders, was a known name there, then ended my career with the Chiefs. Kind of, not very noteworthy wise, nothing really noteworthy, but a lot of us were excited about him that year that he was around. So that is all the hints I'll give you, Stags. That is all the hints I'll give you.
We'll get to that answer and more of your questions after the break, so stick with us on the Out of Structure podcast. And we're back. Ron believes he has stumped me this week with the What NFL Player Am I game, a Pro Bowl, Super Bowl winning offensive lineman that went from the Raiders to the Chiefs and finished his career there. Are you going with former Iowa State Cyclone, Kaleki Osemele?
There you go. There you go.
I'm guessing I did not pronounce that exactly right, but that's as close as I can get right now.
Yeah. No, I was trying to keep the years out, so maybe that would help. But I probably still gave you too much. I don't know. These three hints things. I need to, maybe I need 2 hints. Maybe I need to reduce the hints.
Yeah, nobody mentioned Rodney Hudson in this run of us trying to stump each other here. But let's get to some questions from the peoples. We had lots of good ones on Twitter. Not quite as many after a win as we hit after a loss. But we do appreciate your questions. Keep them coming every week. Ron, go ahead and start off with the first one.
Well, since we got to Jake's first question, we'll get to his other question here. He gave us 2. And so I appreciate the questions, Jake. As always, Jake Wilson at Jake for Now on Twitter. Much of the Chiefs' struggles this season have been attributed to penalties. But is their habitual lack of ball security the bigger issue? Stags, what is your opinion on kind of the weighing between ball security and undisciplined penalties?
The Chiefs are second to worst in the league. They're tied with the Patriots, actually, at -8 on the season in turnover differential. This is a – son of a bitch. Sorry. This is this outdated?
I have no idea. Let's see.
So it's 14 games. I thought they played 15. Have they played 14 or 15?
14.
All right. All right, cut this whole section.
Right. Yeah, you're right. No, if you just go with, the Chiefs are, then we'll be good.
The Chiefs are -8 turnover differential on the season. That's second worst in the NFL, tied with the Patriots, behind only the Jets and the Commanders.
Whew.
They've turned the ball over entirely too much. They've given the ball away, 24 times so far this season. That is, 15 interceptions from Patrick Mahomes. I think that was the over-under we talked about prior to the season. I think we're at a push right now. Ball security is a big issue. There have been many close calls as well where a player has fumbled and able to recover their own fumble. I think Rashee Rice had one of those again this week. So it is it is an issue. Taking care of the football is critical, especially when you have thinner margins of victory. This team isn't blowing people out because the offense isn't what it was. The only way they're going to win games is by being more mistake-free than the other team. So turnovers, to me, are the biggest part of that. Penalties are annoying, but turnovers are killer.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? If you get a penalty, you get backed up, but Patrick Mahomes can still overcome that. If you get a turnover, he's off the field, So
That's right.
Yeah, that's and drop passes lead to turnovers, and drop pass can be just as bad as a turnover if it's on 3rd and 10. So yeah, I am with you on that. I think the ball security thing is a big thing, and that's where I have a struggle with people saying it's the coaching a lot of the time. The coaches definitely have reasons to be criticized, in a season where they're not playing that well on offense. But I just feel like a lot of the issues we're seeing are execution and on the players themselves rather than, what else is going on.
Absolutely. Ed Helinsky, our guy, Mr. Ed315 on Twitter, might we anticipate more bumps on the road in the season-ending games against the Raiders, Chargers, and Bengals? Is it smooth sailing from here on out, or are there going to be more issues?
I mean, that Bengals game is going to be tough for sure. They look like a very similar team, as when Joe Burrow's playing for them.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, their defense hasn't been that good this year. And I do think them not having Jesse Bates and Von Bell this year against the Chiefs at safety is a huge kind of difference in the matchups in the past, because those guys just play so well in the back end and can confuse Mahomes and take away windows. They may not be able to do as much of that this year, but their defense still, obviously, we all know historically has given our offense fits, Mahomes fits, and especially with these receivers, maybe not being disciplined in their route, their route running and sitting in windows. That's what the Bengals always force this team to do, right? Is it would drop 8 and force Mahomes to kind of throw into tight windows or hold on to the ball. Yeah, I think that Bengals game is going to be tough. So I definitely think we need to make sure we respect that game on New Year's Eve in Arrowhead as a competitive game still.
And you still have to respect the other two because they are division games. You never know what could happen. The Chiefs will be looking to clinch the division this Monday night against the Raiders, which is going to be, it will be nice to have that division championship in the bag, and then work on playoff seeding after that. That's always goal number one is win your division and then go from there. So they'll have something to play for against the Raiders. I don't know what to expect against the Raiders or the Chargers. I feel like those teams have been wildly inconsistent this year. So you could get their best game. They could play spoiler in either of those two games. But yeah, as far as matchup goes, that one against the Bengals is the big one. And then you just don't know what's going to happen as far as playoff seeding and what they have left to play for, how much in their bag are the Chiefs going to be, how much of the A game of Andy Reid do we get in these final 3 games, depending on what happens around the rest of the AFC.
Yeah, because I do think a good point was made in the group chat that, hey, these other teams have a lot of competitive games, and they will be playing them like playoff games where they're going to have their A+ game plan. They're going to have, they're going to be playing like this is a do or die game, and their game plan, their plays that they call are going to reflect that. The Chiefs, the Chiefs. And the Bengals, again, I say it will be a competitive game, but I think overall these last 3 games, they will probably just try to run, Andy always does this, right? Just kind of roll out the ball. I'm going to run my stuff and try to beat you. I think you will see that. And that allows them to kind of save maybe their best stuff for a postseason run. And it might have to happen, with 4 games instead of 3 games like usual, because, there is still an outside chance to get to the AFC 1 seed, but it is going to be tough.
Yeah,
there is still a chance.
To answer the question directly, though, are there going to be bumps on the road? Yes. I mean,
yes.
This team will absolutely have some moments in those final 3 games where you're going to beat your head against the wall and wonder, if this is just a doomed season. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be. It may not even be pretty. They should win all 3 games, though. Even as tough of a matchup as that Bengals game is going to be. Nick Pickrell, Nick Pick 00 on Twitter, with the Reid fine handed down, would love your take on the league discouraging players from publicly calling out refs. When did this practice start, and do you think it helps or hurts the game? Ron, I'll let you run with that for the moment.
Yeah, no, I get why, you can't just have coaches and players, not punished, I guess, for, because if there was no fine attached to, criticizing officials, you would just have it so much more, right? Like you'd have it all the time, and it would probably, get annoying and get ridiculous because it is a hard, it is a hard job. But I think the fact that, I think when someone like Andy Reid, a really prominent name in NFL, and all these decision making things, is the one doing this, I think it tells you that, there is something up and something, that isn't right about the officiating, especially just for that game. Um, so yeah, I think it is kind of weird to me, but I think it overall is fine to fine players if they get a little too critical of the officiating, because overall it is hard, and like these, we're just so, it's as a culture now, we're so used to pointing at the officiating. I think it would get out of hand if players and coaches didn't feel like they could get, because you hear Andy all the time, right? He's like, oh, I don't want to say that because he kind of is referencing that he doesn't want to get fined. So for him to go over that line, it's a big deal. And so yeah, I think maybe it's just one of those things where they kind of have to do it to keep it in line, and it kind of gives you a gauge or a monitor of like, okay, well, if a player or coach does get fined and they go over the line, it's because they really felt passionate about this and something really was up. And hopefully hopefully it does give some change, and maybe that's kind of the silver lining there.
Yeah, I do feel like this has been happening forever. This has been a long-standing NFL rule, and players know and coaches know that you can't go over the top when criticizing officials in game, after game, ever. Is it good for the game? I think I could see it either way. You're right. There has to be a line somewhere, because you can't have, players and coaches and NFL. The more players and coaches complain about it, the more fans get fired up. You're going to have,
Right.
Officials who are in danger at games and at home. I mean, there's a lot of, that's a tough job, and
Yeah.
and exposing them to undue criticism is unnecessary. I do think the officiating has been bad. So go ahead and find me if you need to.
They don't
It's
care
been
about our
rough.
opinion.
And I don't know that it's biased. I still don't believe that it's biased, but I still believe that it's inconsistent, and it's not great. And does the criticism of it help or hurt the team? You'd almost argue that it doesn't help, because they still have a target on their back, and the NFL does seem to react and focus on things after it's become a theme. So when the offensive offsides was an issue for the Chiefs, and we were outraged that it never gets called, it was called this weekend on other teams. So it is it's an interesting trend that whenever they notice something, they tend to focus on it, and then it makes other games, it affects other games. So I think a lot of penalties is terrible football to watch. I think that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, we talked about it last week, I think was just absolutely miserable, not only because Mahomes, was under pressure the whole game, but also because there was 120 yards in penalties called against the Chiefs in that game. It makes the games harder to watch, more frustrating. And I don't know that it's additive from a fairness perspective necessarily to be that strict on calling penalties. So I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what the right answer is. I do know that, sometimes you got to let players and coaches be humans and express their emotions and vent their frustration. So I don't blame the Chiefs for being upset and for venting on that. I just don't know that it's going to change anything for the better.
Right. Yeah, I agree. The last thing I'll say, on it is just, the fact that, the refs, a lot of times, do not need to answer, for their calls, while the players and coaches do have to answer, for their negativity and stuff. So I do think something that could help with all of this is like just having a ref like have a, I don't know, like more of a public press conference like they have with the players and coaches. Like, I don't know, like they have a pool report where they like, why not make that more of like a publicized thing? I don't know if that'll necessarily help, but like at least it's like the ref like hold, hey, like trying to hold himself accountable. Media reports can ask questions to him and try to pick at hey, well, people are saying this. So,
yeah,
that would be
I'm not sure. I mean, I think you'd probably get a lot more of the company line speech, right? Like Roger Goodell coming out and saying, "I don't know why we're talking about a call. It was called correctly." Like it's.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if we get a lot of that. Tell you what, let's do something fun real quick because the holidays are coming up. We'll be watching the Chiefs on Christmas Day. So we're going to have Santa Ron come out here and listen to our top 3. Well, each of us get 3 wishes for the Chiefs.
A genie Santa.
For the rest, Santa Genie Ron.
Santa Genie.
For the rest of this regular season and playoffs, what are your 3 wishes for the Chiefs? I've got 3 already in my head. Let's go one by one. So you get 1, I get 1, and we'll give our top 3 Chiefs wish list.
Okay, well, I mean, I do think the number one wish for me, if I'm wishing myself, because I am the genie, so I'm granting my own wishes. Please, let's give Pacheco a fully healthy playoff run. Even if that means he doesn't play as much down the regular season stretch. Let's just wish him, that shoulder completely healthy so he can run over guys like he loves to do. And that goes, that goes throughout the remainder of the playoff run, because I do think we've talked about all your Sags, and I know you agree, but he is just such a X factor, key factor in this offense that, is easy to kind of overlook. But in these big games, in these important games, I really think the run game is going to be a difference, maker. And he is what makes the run game at its ceiling in this offense right now for what it can be. So yeah, please give me some healthy Isaiah Pacheco the rest of the year.
Brings that energy. And I do like starting off your Christmas wish list with health. So I'll start mine off with the same healthy Patrick Mahomes for the playoff run. We've seen too many times in the playoffs in recent years, Mahomes not right, hobbling, having to overcome injuries. Let's have a nice, clean, healthy, 100% Patrick Mahomes. They're going to need him as well. And especially given the state of the receivers, you need Mahomes to be playing like he was this week to make it impossible for the receivers to cost them a game. I've noticed, and maybe this is just in my head, but it sure looks like to me that Mahomes is being a lot more intentional about ball placement and sticking it in guys' guts so that there's no chance or less of a chance of a drop. That's got to be running through his head a little bit. But anyway, healthy Patrick Mahomes for the playoffs. That's the best gift of all.
Yeah, because I mean, we didn't even get it last year, so it's not. It's not a given. And it'd be nice because, it is one funny thing about last year is they made it all the way through with him injured. I mean, this year I'm not as confident with him being healthy, but that's the thing. A healthy Mahomes through a playoff run, I should not underestimate that. So I love that right. Call. That is a great call there. I know it's kind of a health thing again, but my second one is please be Cook. Be good. Come back for the playoffs. I want Brian Cook back in this defense because I do like how Chamari Connor's playing. But I think Mike Edwards in the back end really needs to be a situational type player, a guy that really only plays maybe in like 4-minute, 2-minute drill type situations where he can just be a true ball hawk on the back end and open field. Just feels like to me, he just in condensed space or just as a tackler, he does not get it done as much as a guy like B Cook did. And I feel like in the playoffs, they're going to really need him. And then guys like Reed and Shamar Connor, up, kind of underneath, just kind of attacking the line of scrimmage, man. I think you have 2 dogs there. So please give me B Cook back in the back end. And I think this secondary is ready to carry the defense itself to a playoff run.
All right. I like that one. So my next wish is going to be to get some folks off the naughty list. How about a package of Stickum gloves and cleats for the receiving crew?
I like this.
to get these guys off the naughty list, back on the nice list, and get them making plays again. Whatever it takes, whatever equipment you can provide, or encouragement, or whatever it takes. Let's get some receivers in the right place that can catch the ball.
Yeah, I like that because they definitely need some help. I don't think you can, that's really the only thing you can do. You can't I'm a genie, but I can't grant a new player on the team, right? We gotta help the guys we have here. So I agree with that one. But all right, my final wish is can you get us the 1 seed, Santa? Can you get us the 1 seed? And because it's really not that unrealistic if you look at it. The Ravens need to lose to the Niners and the Dolphins, who are two reasonable teams. Those are two of the 3 teams they have left. They also have the Steelers left. The Steelers are a division rival team that would love to spoil that for them. But so they need to lose 2 out of 3. You need the Dolphins to lose some games, and they have a rough end of the schedule. They have the Cowboys, they have the Ravens in Baltimore, and the Bills. So that Ravens-Dolphins game, one way or another, that's kind of helping the Chiefs depending on what else happens. And then, the Chiefs have their own little, 3-game stretch, which we talked about the Bengals being tough. But come on, Santa, get us the 1 seed, kind of give us a little breathing room and give us a reason to have a great chance to not waste a Mahomes year and go win a Super Bowl. So
I do want a Week 18 Kevin Harlan. I'm calling both games, baby.
Oh man, that was the best, dude. That's what I'm saying. Let's get one of those again. That was the best.
All right. Well, I'm going to pull from the earlier conversation for the final wish here, and that is from here forward, the Chiefs have a positive turnover margin because if they do that, they will get the 1 seed, or they'll at least win out and make a playoff run, whether it's at home or on the road. Control what you can control. Hold on to the football. Take it away on defense. You're going to win games in the playoffs. I'm looking forward to another playoff run, another holiday season, some time off with the friends and family. Hopefully everybody out there enjoys it. Whatever holidays you celebrate, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or something else, make sure that you enjoy it, be present, enjoy your family and friends, enjoy the time off. I'm going to leave it there and let Ron pick it up and do our weekly preview. Maybe there's a little less to preview since we just played the Raiders not too long ago, but the Chiefs-Raiders coming up on Christmas Day. Enjoy it. Thank you for being with us on the podcast, and I'll talk to you all next week. Ron, take it from here.
Yeah, how about we just break down the NFL playoff picture for y'all, just so y'all understand kind of where it's at right now. I know we just talked about the Ravens and the Dolphins kind of last parts of the schedule, but just so y'all are clear, the Ravens are 11-3 at the top of the AFC conference right now, 2-game lead on the Chiefs. So that's why you need them to lose at least 2 games to get them to tie record-wise. And the Chiefs, I believe, do have a better AFC record with their losses to the Lions. The Lions and the Eagles this year. That has definitely helped the Chiefs to an extent, and the Packers, right? So 3 NFC losses for the Chiefs. That is why they can win that tiebreaker. The Dolphins, they're a team that definitely is getting hot on defense. Tyreek Hill didn't play this last game, but I don't think that was injury-wise. So I think they're a team that definitely could be scary in the playoffs. But, man, they play some tough opponents. We already mentioned it. So, they're 10-4. The Chiefs are only a game back of them, and they have the tiebreaker. So the Chiefs do. So that's where they can jump them pretty easily depending on what happens. The Jaguars are 8-6. They've dropped below the Chiefs record-wise. And so in terms of the 1 seed, that's where we're getting the fact that the Chiefs could get there. They are the 3 seed right now. The Dolphins, the 2 seed. The Jaguars, the 4 seed. You have the Browns at the 5 seed, 9-5. Joe Flacco looking resurgent. I think he's the new Nick Foles, man. I mean, it is pretty ridiculous how he has come up, kind of out of nowhere. And obviously Nick Foles was playing football. He wasn't off the street like Flacco was, but just the fact that, if everything else can go right for them, they do have a kind of defense to win in the playoffs and do something crazy. But the Bengals are the 6 seed at 8-6. The Chiefs will see them in a couple weeks. That is the thing there is I think the Bengals, do look like a solid team. Jake Browning does look like he can captain the ship. So I do think that's a tough out, and that's who the Chiefs will be playing week 1 or wild card round, I should say, if the season stopped today. But that's the thing is the Bengals are followed by the Colts, Bills, and Texans all at 8-6 as well. So there's 4 8-6 teams kind of sitting in that 6-7 spot. So that's where the Chiefs, if you're a Chiefs fan kind of watching the NFL, you want to look at those teams. The Colts with Gardner Minshew. Obviously the Bills, I mean, they're on fire. They look like one of the best teams in the NFL in general. And so they're a team that if they creep up into that 7 or 6 seed, the Chiefs will be seeing wild card weekend in Arrowhead. And that would not be, probably the most desirable game. But at the same time, probably a game the Chiefs would be confident going into, knowing that they should have beat them the first time and that it is a familiar opponent. And so, yeah, I think I think there's some pros and cons to that first game being a Bills game. Even if the Bills are hot, you get them before they build even more momentum deeper into the postseason. But at the same time, right? Maybe you do want to try to avoid them, obviously, and then later in the rounds after they've been beat up a little bit, or after the Ravens get them, maybe something else can happen. So that's the hope. And then on the NFC side, I mean, the Niners, Eagles, Niners, I should say, sorry, are the 1 seed, in their own tier, it seems like, in the NFL. But Eagles, Lions, Cowboys, I think all 4 teams right now are pretty, viable teams. I know the Eagles are going through their rough stretch, but, this is a team that knows what to do once the postseason starts. And so the Cowboys still have a rough end of the season schedule-wise. So who knows what the NFC East will end up at. Lions, obviously, are going to be clinching the NFC North probably here soon with another win. So it's going to be a fun NFC or NFL playoff run. So I'm excited to cover it for y'all. Excited to cover the Chiefs run, because I still do feel good that we're going to see some sort of run into the postseason. But with some of they're going to have to overcome some stuff with some of these miscues, some of the errors we keep seeing on the Chiefs, and it'll be fun to see if they can do it, and if they can't, then we're going to be here telling you exactly what they need to do to correct them. So appreciate y'all listening. I'm going to wrap up the show here. I'm Ron Kopp Jr., the lead analyst at arrowheadpride.com. Make sure you're following at the site. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. I got some clips out today. I'll have a defensive film review article out soon. And me and Stags will be back next week recapping the game on Christmas Day. And we'll catch you then. All right. Thanks, guys.